We are checking in again with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for our Tacky Talk podcast. How are you today, Tacky?
Hey, good to see you, Joe. Happy to see you on school vacation week.
Yeah, that's right. School vacation week. It's Ash Wednesday today. It's the start of Lent for folks who observe that. Just coming off the big Winterfest celebration here in Quincy, so lots going on.
Yeah, and it's nice to have a bit of a slow week, actually, with school vacation week, not just necessarily at the State House, but also around the city in many ways, as people take advantage of a chance to try to get it with the family, whether it be on a week's trip or a day trip.
And it's even a vacation at the State House because I know that the Healy administration is on vacation.
Yeah, it's a little bit unusual, actually. I think it's going to take a little bit for them to adjust. As Deval Patrick, infamous idea that he had like paid leave and stuff, that doesn't exist if you're elected official, folks. There is no paid leave. There is no unpaid leave. There's no family medical leave act benefit. There's no conventional vacation or sick days and personal days and so forth. People often ask me about, do you get the week off? I'm like, not really, because there's no vacation accrual. On the flip side, we do have a lot of flexibility in our own schedules, as many people are aware. But that flexibility kind of becomes on demand with folks who want my attention, whether it be at an event or at a meeting, such as a Zoom meeting or in-person meeting these days. And also it gives me a chance to catch up on things like paperwork. When I'm at an event, I don't get to read paper that I need to read or PDFs now on things that are going on the State House, going to committee and whatnot. And I'm very thankful for my staff who keeps me updated on current events, things I see on State House news as well as the major papers. But at the same time, when I'm watching the news, because people are aware now, I do like my 6 p.m. news when I can watch it on Channel 5. I do send clips to the staff via text. Hey, did you guys see this? So, it's a world of text messaging and ability to convey information that we see in the media to each other. So, I think the administration is going to have to adjust a bit because they don't have a conventional vacation or vacation time.
Yeah, a little different in the executive branch, but this week, Secretary Galvin's the acting governor, right?
Yeah, Secretary Galvin's been the acting governor of the state for 30 years now?
At least.
So for those who aren't aware, it's the governor, then the lieutenant governor is the pecking order, and the secretary of state is the acting governor when the lieutenant governor is not available. And the acting governor goes into place anytime the governor leaves the Commonwealth. So if the governor sets foot outside the state of Massachusetts, the lieutenant governor becomes acting governor. If she's not available, then obviously Galvin becomes acting governor and the secretary of state. So it's interesting. You have to be deemed incapacitated. But the most common one is that you are physically outside of Massachusetts.
Interesting. So any movement on committee assignments yet?
Well, we got committee assignments in the House last Thursday. The Senate made their appointments on Wednesday. The Republican caucus in the House made theirs on Wednesday as well. And the Senate Republican caucus, I'm not sure what's going on with them just yet. The problem with the Senate Republican caucus is that there's only 3 senators and 20 or 30 or so committees. The House Senate structure is a little bit different regarding standing committees. So imagine being the House Republican Party, 3 members and some 30 plus committees you got to figure out to appoint your total 3 Republican members. So they've been a little bit slower on those appointments, but I'm happy to say I'm back as the Joint Committee Joint Committee Consumer Protection Professional Licensure Chair. This would be my, I think technically my 4th term. It's a little weird because I came in a midterm in 2017, so 17, 19, 21, now 23. So yeah, technically it's beginning my 4th term on this committee, pretty much almost everything stayed the same. Aaron Merkowitz, a good friend for the North End, is still Ways and Means Chair. The big seat that everyone's looking at is the Majority Leader seat. Michael Moran from Brighton is now the Majority Leader. Kate Hogan, who was Speaker Pro Tem, remained Speaker Pro Tem, did not get into the Majority Leader spot. And then we have a couple of folks that moved into leadership positions, which is Alice Peisch, who was Education Chair, and Danielle Gregoire, who was the Bonding and Capital Assets Chair. and they move into the part of the second leaders as well as the floor leaders positions. And then the other committees that have absent folks, have some new first time chairs, including my good friend Minnie down from Amherst, who's now the natural. She's the tourism chair. It's a starting chair for many new members. And one of my friends, Paul Schmid from Westport, is now the chair of agriculture, which is kind of funny because he used to chair natural resources and agriculture when it was a combined committee. He split those committees in half this year, and he's come full circle. So it is kind of how funny some things work with certain folks regarding committee assignments. And of course, Bruce Ayers is still the vice chair of financial services. Jamie Murphy from Weymouth is the chair of financial services. So we have the powerful duo there regarding the banking and insurance industries on the South Shore. And Bill Driscoll, the rep from Milton, continues to be emergency prep chair. It was the COVID-19 chair, but since COVID-19's moved to a whole different part of our lives, he's now in charge of the emergency preparation committee. And then Mark Cusack continues to be revenue chair, and we're aware that there's taxation issues that will be bringing forward this cycle that is going to probably happen, hopefully in the first half of the session here. So there's continued conversation from the tax package that we worked on last time on deductions on your rental deductions, increasing child care tax credits, many types of deductions and credits that help working families. That conversation is still going on. And Mark Cusack and Braintree is going to lead that. And of course, I was just talking about John Keeler earlier. He's now chair of election laws. Pretty much straightforward what that sounds like. But there's also a campaign finance law that actually falls into that committee as well. So John will have his hands full again as people will discuss reforms and changes to have our elections in campaign finance reflect the modern day.
Any new members on your committee, Jackie?
Yes, I have 4 brand new members. I have 11 House members and 6 senators. That is a joint chair. Again, joint chair means that both House and Senate chair the committee together, and we kind of have to come to some agreements at the committee level. We're going to move those out. But I have 4 brand new members who are also newly elected members as well. So I have Kate Donahue, let's see if I get the names correct, Don Schad, Christopher Worrell, and Estela Reyes. Let's see if I can remember all those names. And we welcome back some folks, including Mary Key from Worcester as my vice chair. And on the South Shore, we have John Moschino. Some of you may know John from the Cohasset, Hingham area. And we welcome back again David LeBeau from Worcester, Dan Cena, which I think is Lunenburg. I think he's up in that zone. And then we welcome back our 2 Republican members, my old friend, Steve Howitt out of Seekonk. We came in together, we're still together after all these years. And Joe McKenna from Webster is the ranking minority member. They've been with the committee. Well, Steve's been with the committee with me since the very beginning. So, over a decade plus now. And Joe's been on the committee as long as I've been around. So as chair. So that's great. We have some people that are veterans and know how things work. And my co-chair is now John Cronin from I think it's Lunenburg also, it's outside of Fitchburg. He's a third term senator from that area. So he's nowadays, given how fast rotation is, 3 terms makes you a veteran in the Senate, given the high turnover. Used to be able to wait like term 6 before you're a veteran, but how things change. And look forward to seeing him. And he's going to be my 4th Senate chair in 4 terms. Yeah, I know. It seems like every time I get a good working relationship with a Senate chair, I have a new one.
All right, so lots of changes. Is this pretty much following the timetable that you thought it would?
Yeah, it's going to be a Valentine's Day kiss, St. Valentine's Day kiss. So it's going to be a St. Patrick's surprise. Yeah. So, it was the week of St. Valentine's Day, or as the speaker like prefers, Bean Pot Week, depending on how you want to put it. And I do, and I talked about this before on other podcasts, but I don't envy the speakers. Challenges are making decisions. We in the office as a learning lesson, have the staff fill out their own charts for leadership positions as kind of an exercise to teach them about how to interwork in State House, the different interpersonal dynamics, the working relationships. I mean, I think it's very important for staff to learn these things as I learned when I was a staffer many moons ago. And exercises like filling out a bracket, so to speak, is a fun way of learning this. And I did not win the bracket, I'm embarrassed to say. I took too many Gonzagas, as I like to put it. I went out on a limb a few too many times on what I thought would happen. But I mean, there was a lot of vice chairman appointments that the speaker had to fill. People tend to underrate those, but you still have to fill those positions. So technically, there are leadership positions, technically speaking. So your chair, vice chair is a leadership position. And secondly, he had to move some talent around, and also the consideration of seniority. And as I kind of alluded to with the Senate, the House is actually in a very similar position. I mean, probably 75% of the people I came in with in 2011 aren't there anymore.
Wow.
So seniority has to be as part of the consideration speaker, as well as talent, ability, and the commitment to working in the House. I mean, you got to show some work ethic, otherwise you ain't going to get responsibility. It ain't that difficult. So I know people always look at this job as predominantly constituent services, which is true. And obviously, you talk about me attending events and such a lot. And of course, the idea is that you also have to do briefings and meetings in the State House, not just going around the district, visiting people at a time. And then you got to show some commitment. You're going to work on public policy, and you're able to kind of work on your own, think on your own, and be able to negotiate with the Senate and work with your colleagues to try to, get together on things that we can move forward to. And also, folks got to learn how to say no. And how do you do it in a polite and professional manner to a colleague that's going to be, frankly, mad at you? So that's also part of the
or
job. Or
strongly disagree, at least.
I had mad people at me. It's like I don't cut corners on that, but yeah, many strongly disagree. But I had a few mad ones. But yeah, I mean, that's a big part of the job, and people tend to not understand that about the dynamics in my building. Is that I'm working with a lot of dynamics in the House, the Senate, the governor, the treasurer, secretary of state, the attorney general's office, auditor's office, and I got a lot of dynamics, obviously, politically at home. Interacting with the city government, but also interacting with my own constituencies. And, we all know, I'm a Democrat, so you got changes in the Democratic State Committee. Steve Kerrigan will be the next State Democratic Committee chair. Gus Bregford will step down at some point in March, I believe. The Democratic State Committee is going to start to reflect the control under Governor Healy. Mm-hmm. And, there's all these other moving parts around me that people don't always fully appreciate. And as we start a new term, again, building relationships, new governor, new relationships, we expect not everything to be perfect. There's always going to be rockiness to it. But, if you're a professional and you're understanding in this job, you work your way through it. And, there's always going to be disagreements and you have opinions, but how you express them and how you engage folks is very important to creating a respectful relationship, and hopefully relationship that the various people respect you as much as you respect them.
Yeah. Has the governor finished filling out her cabinet yet? Do you know? I know there have been a couple of recent appointments. I think the Department of Environmental Resources or Energy Resources, something of that matter.
Yeah, they've pretty much finished out the assignments. There is a little bit of quirkiness because of the fact that the governor still needs to submit a reorganization plan. We are aware that she's trying to divide up some secretariats and smaller secretariats, also with commissions left and right to reflect her changes. We are not seeing an actual plan yet. I hope that she submits a plan sometime before we start the budget process, because the budget needs to reflect the governor's structure. But as far as appointments are concerned on the secretarial level, she's just about done. I mean, John Santiago, our colleague from Boston, who just started his third term and he's not even going to finish his third term, will be the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Also been brought to my attention that our good friend Ed Coppinger from West Roxbury is going to be moving on to greener pastures as well. That's actually reflected in the committee assignment list, where neither one were assigned to committees, which is kind of the clue they're not going to be here much longer. And obviously I wish them well and better things going on. I mean, Ed Coppinger came in with me in 2011. So right now, the governor's challenge would be filling out the undersecretaries, the commissioners, the deputy commissioners, and so forth. And the secretariats are hitting the ground running. The budget's coming up quick. And Ways and Means will hold hearings, and they're going to start to question secretariats. It doesn't matter. You've only been there for weeks. Ways and Means is going to ask you questions in the hearing, and you're going to have to answer. So they got to maintain some kind of mixture of the old guard and new guard, so to speak, where they're bringing new people, but they have to keep some old folks around because, the new folks coming in have no idea what's going on.
Right.
And it's a balancing act, and hopefully every secretariat, as well as the governor's staff, recognizes that, and they kind of, balance out how this works. I get dribs and drabs from people in administration because, I know people that work in administration. They're not deputies or commissioners. They're, tend to be in the lower end of the food chain. But I mean, news does filter around, and hopefully the administration is aware that there are no secrets in government.
No, that's the nature of government. It's public.
Somebody will say somebody to somebody, and next thing you know, it gets to my ear.
Yeah. The governor can always amend budgets going forward, though, can she not?
Well, she can't amend without our approval. Again,
Yeah,
the appropriation power is in the legislature starting in the House. So if she decides that she wants to do a reorganization plan, after the budget's over, we always can amend the budget to reflect the changing line items and move stuff around. That being said, the budget process does take some time. And if she decides a reorg plan in the midst of conference committee, for example, the House Senate Conference Committee budget can do some technical corrections, moving line items around to reflect the government that she wants to build in the structure.
Right.
So it's not dire, but the chairs of Ways and Means, as well as the chair, the committee members of Ways and Means, will have questions regarding operational issues, and some of these questions will be from the Baker administration.
Okay.
That the Healy administration has to pick up the ball on.
Right.
You don't start with a clean slate, folks. You actually have to pick up what's left from your predecessor and continue, discontinue, or suspend whatever is going on as you're trying to figure it out. But the legislature, as you're aware, is contiguous, meaning that members are here. I know there's enormous turnover, but I mean, the chair of Ways and Means is still the chair of Ways and Means, both branches. Mike Roderick's in the Senate, Aaron Markowitz in the House. I mean, they have changed over in many years now, as well as the various committee members in seniority. If you look at the seniority list of Ways and Means members, they tend to be the most senior members in the House and Senate. So, it isn't like they're not remembering what prior administrations going back as for in some cases Deval Patrick, depending on the member, important things that are important to them that, they want answers out of Deval Patrick, they want answers out of Charlie Baker, they want answers out of Maura Healey.
Yeah.
So some of the more senior members of the committee won't let go, and we'll continue to make those inquiries.
The Senate, I think, did they not just remove term limits for the leadership of the Senate?
Yeah, this is a little bit interesting. The people have this misconception that the term limits for Speaker and Senate President was a time immemorial rule. It is not. I mean, sadly, I've been around long enough that the term limits for Senate President came around with Thomas Birmingham's ascension to Senate President. Tom, who passed away, I think like 3 weeks ago, sadly, at age 70. But yeah, I mean, because that was a response to Bill Bolger's very long reign as Senate President. I think it was like 14 plus years. And part of the Senate reform with Tom Birmingham become president was to work out a deal to be president, included term limits. And that continued on because Bob Travellini was only 3 years. Terry Murray did the full 8 years. You had Stan Rosenberg, and it was a blink of an eye, barely 3. And then you had Harry Chandler, Senate President, for barely 6 months. And then you had Karen Spilka. But I mean, Karen Spilka became Senate President, I believe, in the summer of 2017, with like 5 days left in the session. And she got her first full term on let's see here, 2000. It was actually 2018 was the midterm shift. So 2018. So her first full term 2019. So for 8 years from 2019 would be 2027.
Right.
So today's 2023. It's a long time to 2027.
Yeah.
So removing the term limits this far out, I know the press is making a lot of hay about it, but it isn't like it was just at the very last term and you wanted more time, right? The House did a similar procedure with the Kavarian speakership the Charlie Flaherty speakership because Tom McGee was there for 10 years to initiate term limits. And even then, the only two that actually made it through it all was Tom Finneran, who did 10 because he removed term limits when he was there. And then Sal DeMacy reinstated term limits. And then Bob Lilio took away term limits. And Speaker Mariano made very clear that he's not going to complete any kind of term limit because he's not going to be here for a decade.
Right.
Speaker was.
He said that going in, actually. Yeah.
He was not shy letting people know that he has no interest in being here 10 years later.
Right.
Does term limits work? Well, the term limits only work as much as the membership lets you stay in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So even though people, talk about term limits, one, it's not time immemorial. Two, it has not proven really to make any major changes in the place, right? Terry Murray left after 8 years, but she was kind of tired after 8 years to begin with. And you noted that, Senate presidents as short as 6 months, and some as long in the House as much as 10 plus years. I mean, there is no determination of people's career in leadership and also the next path after leadership in the House. Eventually we all leave and you got to do something else.
Right.
So there's that reality too, and if the membership is not happy with you, the membership's going to do something about it. So the fact that you're able to remain a speaker as well as have a leadership team that's relatively intact for a long period of time is a reflection of the ability to keep the members satisfied and how the place is run.
Yeah, some stability certainly is important in any kind of organization, really, in order to get things accomplished, and get things done.
Well, look at Speaker McCarthy down in Congress. Just saying, folks.
Yes, if you want to bring up national politics. Hey, interesting surprise visit by the president to Ukraine.
Yeah, unexpected. First time a president's visit of a wartime situation where there was no U.S. presence, meaning there's no U.S. military base. There's no, so-called green zone like you saw in Afghanistan.
Plenty of U.S. equipment, but no personnel, right?
Well, also no U.S. flyby. No U.S. aircraft was flying over Ukraine at the time. I think partially it would tip off everybody if U.S. planes crossed the border, and also the whole Russians are like, you cross into that zone, bad things happen, which is kind of fun because the air doesn't belong to Russia, it belongs to Ukraine. But put that issue aside. Right. This is a very big deal because I think some of you have read the news, is where there's no air transport really easily into Kiev. Everything's on ground transport, and there's a lot of vulnerability as you're trying to get there in a secret train. And of course, the U.S. military presence needs to be there with the president to secure him and the senior staff. Quite remarkable they was able to do that. And of course, they denied it because it needs to be done in secret because you don't know who's going to want to take a shot at any U.S. president or any U.S. senior official. I mean, Blinken and others, that go to Ukraine, it has to be in a secure manner and complete secrecy.
Yeah, I think it was meant as a message of support, not only to the government, but to the people of Ukraine, too.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that he is the U.S. president and there's a lot of security associated with it, but there's always a risk that a missile may fly through, right? I mean, you all seen that, they're sending dummy warheads is dropping dead metal everywhere, as well as explosives, both of them all over the place in Ukraine. And, there is, legit risk. I mean, an air siren went off where the president was there. People were watching that clip. But it also sends a message to people who claim that, the U.S. still committed to their cause and, ensuring a free democracy such as it is. I know there's a corruption issue. I know people are going to start sending hate messages about that. But, the idea that people should have the ability to self-govern and make a determination of where the government should go, through a democratic method. And, hey, I know it's a lot of security, but it's still a war zone. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to go into a war zone. And it
only takes one missile or bomb or right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, spies, as been reported multiple times, Ukraine has to keep an eye out for spies and assassination opportunities against their president and their senior leadership. So, I mean, they're constantly on heightened alert nonstop for the past year. The president, being there is a signal of support, but also show that, American bravery is true and real to the Ukrainian people and to the whole world. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin only got as far as Crimea, before Kherson fell. Xi Jinping is heading into Russia, I believe, in the next 10 days. His foreign minister is already out there to discuss, continued relationship between China and Russia. Vladimir Putin sent a very strong state message, reiterating his position regarding the crimes of Ukraine against Russia, which most of us don't believe, and it doesn't make any sense, frankly. And his renewed commitment to do whatever it takes and how many lives it takes. To be honest, what he's trying to say is how many lives does it take for him to win this war. So the spring offensive will be coming up soon. The Russians already started their artillery and started making movement even before the warm weather's totally hit. And you're all aware that, a lot more munitions and now tanks are heading into Ukraine. And there's going to be a lot of training involved for the Ukrainians to learn different types of ordinances as they prepare to make the big push. But armor is now getting thin, even though the Russians lost a ton of armor. The Ukrainian armor, there ain't a whole lot of armor left. This is an attrition war. The Russians' entire strategy is now attrition. We can outlast you because we have more people and stuff.
Right.
And we'll just whittle away your people and stuff because there's less here. So while you may kill more of us, you're going to have diminishing returns. And this is what this war is really become. It's really a 19th century war. It's not even 20th century. It's really become a 19th century war of just plain up attrition. We'll just outlast you. You can kill as many of us as you want, but it won't matter because there's still more of us than you.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is obviously Russia's a nuclear power, and I think Putin just kind of stepped back from the last remaining restriction on nuclear weapons.
Well, there was never any restriction. I mean, all these treaties are wonderful, but you're going to do what you're going to do, treaty or no treaty. I mean, there's no offense. I mean, already sanctioned the country. They're going to get sanctioned again. I mean, their economy is a complete mess. Hence the importance of the conversation of the Chinese, whether or not the Chinese and Russians can, do some kind of synergy, like in the old Soviet bloc days. The difference now is that, well, during the Soviet bloc days, the Russians and the Eastern Europeans were the bulk of the economy and the Chinese were not. It's complete and total role reversal now, where, the Soviet Union was the second biggest economy. It is, the Russian Federation is far from the second biggest economy. And they're now 11th and dropping like a rock. And the Chinese are rising, continue to be rising, second largest economy, and the largest consumer economy in the planet by person. So, it'd be interesting how the dynamic would work because the Chinese don't need them.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This isn't like
interesting.
Yeah, because like the Soviet era, places like China, Cuba, North Korea, other communist countries needed the Soviet Union because they needed to be part of the trading bloc, and they were, very frankly, smaller and weak economies and so military. Now is the opposite. China is the dominant economic power in the communist systems around the world, and they are the dominant military. They're much better than the Russian military in terms of arms and manpower. It's geography that makes it challenging. If you look at a map, you see the mountains, the deserts, the waterways. There's a lot of logistical issues on going on a land war in Asia, much as Pacific War in Asia. We learned that in World War II as well. It doesn't matter how modern you get or how the size of your army. There's all kinds of logistical challenges. So, and also the share of a very large border. The largest border in China is Russia. You come right down in the Central Asian countries. So, from a Russian standpoint, security on those borders, which has always continued to be in dispute because everyone disputes borders, doesn't matter where you're in the world. You got to make sure the Chinese don't decide to kind of like, hey, we're arguing about this piece of space. Let's just move on in. Well, you kind of distracted over there, right? And, the Chinese are very, very aware of their position on the planet, and they're very aware of the position of the Russians. I do understand the foreign ministry does put a lot of wolf diplomacy, a lot of rhetoric and so forth. But don't forget, they have to play the domestic audience. A lot of what they do is not necessarily directed at us. It's directed at their own people at home to reassure their people about their position in the world.
Right, because that's the only message they get. So they can control that, yeah.
And frankly, it's the only message that the Chinese government cares about.
Right, yeah.
Right. It's like we're no different from any other country either. A lot of our messaging is to reassure the American public agree or disagree. The only difference, you're right. The only difference is that we have a lot of media outlets and a lot of opinions and a lot of mediums for us to express different opinions in the matter. Well, the Chinese Communist Party controls the media, and there's only one medium for people to get information.
Yeah. Interestingly, Japan is taking note also and getting concerned about their sovereignty.
Oh, absolutely. If you're an Asian Pacific country, you should be very concerned with your sovereignty on a couple of levels. One, obviously, in military, it's pretty straightforward, but also shipping lanes. Shipping lanes, is still crucial. 40% of all goods come in through the South China Sea, through the Indian Ocean, through Singapore, Malaysia area. They pass through the Strait of Taiwan right into the Sea of Japan or the Eastern Sea, depending which country you want to ask, which there's a whole different conversation on a different day why I said that. But I mean, it very much impacts Japan, Korea, as well as the Taiwan situation. And if the Chinese government decides to control the entire strait, well, they can basically demand anything you want out of you because you can't get your goods. And the Philippines, renewing for the first time in many years, their agreement to U.S. military base, which is not the conventional base you're all thinking about, just build a giant military base on someone's island, basically sharing their minimum six military bases with the U.S. government, sharing Philippine bases, is a big deal. And having more than one staging location for the U.S. government to participate in joint exercise with the Filipino military, that's a big deal. The ability to have a greater presence in a larger geographic zone. So yeah, the Japanese, should be very concerned. They're the third biggest economy. They're going to have their GDP reach a greater level in terms of spending on military equipment relative to GDP. And the Constitution, though, still doesn't allow them to leave the island in terms of support or self-defense. They can only remain on the island for self-defense pursuant to the Constitution. That still continues to be a very big debate in Japan. But where they should eliminate a clause to allow them to participate in UN peacekeeping missions, for example, to allow them to assist U.S. and other allies with military forces, because right now they can only send non-lethal aid to any allied group, and also to do preemptive, meaning that, if they're coming at you from the water, you should probably meet them in the water before they get to your island.
Right. Yeah, I know that's a holdover from World War II, really.
Yeah, the U.S. government, as part of the Treaty of Japan at the end of World War II, basically wrote their constitution. The U.S. government wrote the Japanese constitution, which is why their government structure is, I wouldn't say identical to the U.S., but a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
And one of the big provisions was that you cannot have a military leave your territorial area.
Yeah, they don't want a repeat of what happened. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, we're in a different world today.
Right.
And, obviously they want to protect their sovereignty, and North Korea is still like sending missiles or whatever ballistics, over Japan, which causes a lot of panic. And, those of us that live here don't really understand, how much of the world really are under threat of some kind of foreign attack. And the continuous panic and fear. If you live in South Korea, I know it's really part of life now, but you still have a neighbor that can shell you with World War I equipment. You don't need 21st century equipment to ruin a city. I mean,
right.
The North Koreans just bombard you with equipment from 100 years ago and still do massive damage. And the Russians also prove that too. I mean, they're using Soviet area weapons and to devastating effect. You don't need smart missiles, so you can just drop stuff into an urban area.
Right. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but true. Back here at home, I guess a new policy on asylum seekers going into or at least trying to go into effect, probably get challenged in Supreme Court, but surprising from the Biden administration.
Yeah, the pandemic era regarding no due process for asylum seekers returning to border. Interesting. This is interesting because most people don't realize that once you come to U.S. territory, United States, you are granted certain due process rights pursuant to the U.S. Supreme Court. U.S. Supreme Court did rule that people that come into the U.S. have some due process rights. One of them includes, right to an immigration hearing on whether or not you have a legit case to stay or not stay. Under pandemic rules, there was no hearing. You just get sent back over the other side. And the Biden administration is trying to simplify this due process by allowing asylum seekers to use any embassy not necessarily from their home country, particularly talking about Central or South America, not Mexico. We're talking about much further south.
Right.
People tend to think this is a Mexican issue. It is, but kind of not. It's a little more nuanced than the media likes to make it. But I mean, particularly, people, fleeing war-torn areas or, well, gangster / cartel areas,
Yeah, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Ecuador, yeah.
Yeah, because the current requires you to go back to your country of origin and apply for your country of origin. The Biden administration would like to be able to have you apply anywhere en route to the U.S. outside the country of origin, because maybe trying to get to a U.S. diplomacy office, one, may not exist in a normal manner,
Right.
because we're not there.
Right. Right.
And second, try to get there, you might die. So, yeah, things we don't think about in the U.S. So this is kind of an interesting proposal. We'll see if it has any legs. And like I said, the end of the pandemic rules regarding automatic deportation, which the Biden administration held over from the Trump administration, will end, and they're going to have to come up with some kind of mechanism for orderly due process in the immigration courts, which are understaffed.
Mhm.
Like everything in the U.S. is now understaffed. Not surprising. Immigration courts have always been understaffed and continue to be understaffed, and Congress and the administration needs to figure this out.
Yeah, exactly. They have 2 years to do it.
Yep, they got to figure this out. I mean, that's one of the big problems, is because a lot of people come asking, and the courts are filled up, and they got to figure what to do with them all. And that's why having people apply outside the U.S. to the U.S. from anywhere en route may be more orderly solution than floods of people crossing the border, and then you got to process them and then proceed to they're going to claim asylum, and they got to pursue the due process that way, as opposed to using correct channels via the State Department through ICE. Then they can review the issue and be able to get you an answer in an orderly fashion. Now, will it be faster or slower? I can't say.
Right. Yeah.
I can't. I'm worried that even in friendly countries like Japan, people seeking to have permanent resident status, and it's a friendly country, have been waiting like a decade.
Well,
I know some folks that have been applying for years, they have family in the U.S. They've already permanent residents, some of them citizens, and they want to come join them and migrate to the U.S. And that's a friendly country, folks. And that ain't happening. So, yeah.
that's a big one. Yeah, that'll be an election year issue, I'm sure. And Jackie, do you know, with the ARPA funds, I know that counties were also given allocations. Does the state have any say in how those are distributed?
Nope, county commissioners.
Okay. Do you know, has it been distributed?
No idea.
Okay.
I should call Joe Shea at some point, but it hasn't really been on my priority list to find out. Yeah, I don't know. You can ask Bellotti. He's in charge of moving the money out.
Signing the checks. Yeah.
Signing the checks. Of all the people know if the money's moving, it's Mike Bellotti, is the county treasurer. He has to sign all the checks leaving the door anyway. So
True.
I'm sure that they could give you a more definitive answer. I mean, they're also in the same time frame too. I mean, like the state and the city, we have, I believe, the end of the cycle, end of this year, I think, or is it? I think it is this year. We have to move out all the money, at least allocated for distribution. And some people that were using this money as a continuous program are going to have some problems. That as opposed to treating one-time money, one-time project and you're out. So we'll see how we'll see really at a municipal level, all municipalities,
right,
how they've been using their money for the past 2 years. And, when that money runs out, is it affecting a normal program, or they've been actually using for one-time funds that are, I mean, I know you can use it for a lot of things. It's fairly flexible, but, are they, prepare? I mean, again, I point to City of Boston's free bus rides, which the city's been reimbursing MBTA on a couple of bus routes. That's opera money.
Yeah, that eventually is going to go away. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like a ton of money, and in the size of the $3 billion Boston budget, I think it's over $3 billion. But still, I mean, it's like you got to find $10 or $20 million someplace inside their budget, and those are the listing to have seen municipal budgets. It's a lot tighter than people give it credit for.
Mhm.
So it isn't like there's a lot of free cash floating around. And places like Boston, other locales are going to be facing some property tax challenges, especially since remote work still is a major part of people's lives, or hybrid work that impacts small local businesses, particularly in places like downtown Boston that can't keep up because there's no customers. And eventually consumer spending will slow because it's already starting. Got $1 trillion in credit card debt by consumers from this last year. So imagine $1 trillion debt by consumers. We're not talking about owning property. We're talking about people just buying day-to-day stuff. Redevelopment seems to be slowing down in Boston. You got rising interest rates, which the Federal Reserve, I would suspect, at some point is going to make another announcement of continuing hiking rates. So, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges for the state and municipalities regarding the continually changing economy and lack of access to liquidity that is affordable. And it's going to impact a lot of plans regarding development and also people's personal finances.
Yeah, I read a story just this week. I think that the state has lost over 110,000 residents in the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not necessarily usual. I mean, the state's really bizarre, right, in how we operate, because one big part of it is that it's a huge student population, right? We receive 90 to 100,000 students a year. The U.S. Census, we estimate at least the U.S. Census was short 60,000 students who should have been here in the 2020 census.
Yeah.
That was a major concern regarding possibly losing a congressional seat because students were physically not here. And there's a strong push in college campuses to make sure that you're counted in Massachusetts, you're physically in Massachusetts by April 1st. But I mean, one of the ways you can tell the impact of migration is housing.
Yes.
Vacancies are still not readily available. I'm not seeing a whole lot of for sale signs. A few for sale signs I see in the eastern part of the state, come up and down. It's still pretty quick by any standard, and the market is still tight. I think a lot of renters have moved out, but rent prices aren't going down either.
At all, no.
So even though there's a migration out, the biggest impact you see it in is in property. Property should be more available, and rents should go down because the supply is out meeting demand. And I read the Globe. There has some great stories about families, and not great stories in the sense that it's good for Massachusetts, but I mean, legit everyday working people's stories about the challenges of cost of living in Massachusetts, especially in the greater Boston area. And frankly, the property prices, the market's out of control still. But also, how renters are being squeezed because landlords know they can find somebody else. If landlords know they can't find anybody else, they have to work with tenants.
Right. Either, work with them or lower the rents, right?
Yeah, I mean, this ain't complicated economics.
Right.
So I know people left, but there's also a lot of people retired. It'd be interesting if they break down the demographics or reasons of leaving. I know cost of living is a big one, but not surprising. A lot of people also have second homes in Florida, particularly have some means. Or a second home in a warmer climate, and you're really become a part-time resident. And I'm also convinced that if you're higher income and move to a lower tax or a warmer state, depending on your needs, you're not going to give up your property in Massachusetts. You're going to be more of a part-time resident.
Yeah, that's true. You'll keep it as a rental, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, also, if you have means, like you have like legit money, why would you give up property? It's only accruing higher value. Why would you? Because if you can afford to have both, would you keep both?
Probably, yeah. I mean, if you could afford it, sure.
Yeah, so I think the next big statistic is really the taxes coming up this year, and how many people file as part-time residents living less than 6 months.
Is that standard? You have to be in the state at least 6 months
to be a resident of Massachusetts for tax purposes.
Okay.
So some people, will take part-time resident taxes, but even when you live in Massachusetts, you pay some taxes. So, and there's always the tax code's crazy in every state. So, residents, that I think, people really should look, hopefully the global look. We'll look at the tax records of the last year, this year, the probably next 3 years
Mhm.
to get a sense of the migration of folks based on how they fill out their taxes.
All right, we'll wait and see. You know what, I want to ask you about, Jackie. I know it's something that's near and dear to your heart is free school lunches.
Yeah, we worked on free school lunches and I think breakfast last year. There's a pandemic era thing that we put into place. I think lunches will be a continual conversation this year, depending on how budget cycle goes. Obviously, I think it's very important that people shouldn't be stigmatized from getting school lunches in many constituents, including my own. This is one of the more important meals for kids that are available, depending on socioeconomics. And given the high inflationary costs and everyone's feeling the pinch, I think free school lunches and free breakfasts are becoming critical for kids and nutrition. It doesn't matter how much money your family has, it's still very important. And I know that the city of Quincy's nutrition department, has changed. It's not the days when we were young with soggy hot dogs and greasy pizza. Much more balanced, better diet. And I know it's not easy because food costs have gone up, and that does impact the school system as well. So the state needs to step in and find a way to do a funding mechanism to expand free school lunches, and also to the summer program as well, which I'm aware does exist, and works with groups like the Germantown Neighborhood Association to distribute these free lunches to local families and walking distance to the neighborhood center, for example. So hopefully we're going to try to figure this out in this year's budget. And my good friend Denise Garlick from Needham, who's also from my class. Yeah, a lot of people in my class did all right in terms of leadership positions. Will be charged with working with that, and hopefully, if she can work with the Ways and Means chairs to try to figure out how to get this to work.
Yeah, is there a cost associated with it right now?
Don't know what it is yet. We kind of have to wait to see what Education Committee and Ways and Means Committee comes up with the analysis and see if we can push it through. Again, the uncertainty of the economy. We talked about this for 3 straight years of the uncertainty of the economy, and everything I thought the economy would do did not do what I thought it would do, and it's the total opposite of what I thought was going to happen. And this is kind of part of the big challenge right now. And every business, every household, every government trying to figure this out. What you need to pay for, and what you're earning, and how things are matching up. What you're facing at home is the stuff that's everybody's facing at home, as well as every business and every government. So I can't tell you of any certainty how things are going to come out. I'm aware that the last month's state revenue numbers weren't quite as robust as we hoped, but we're still a few months from April. And I know the Q4 December Christmas sales were not as robust. When you look at it, Black Friday was not as robust as they all hoped. They expected higher numbers that didn't come through. And I'm hoping that products and food will go down in price. So eggs have dropped a hair. I'm hoping it drops more because I think it's like 71% inflation on eggs. But also in retail goods that we collect sales tax on. I do hope it drops, but it also reduces our sales tax income.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And same with the meals tax. I would like to have, like everyone else watching, reduce costs on products and services. But that also means reduced sales tax because it's a proportion of what you pay.
Right. On that note, let's let folks know how to get hold of you.
Sure. I'm still at the same office. We are moving office to State House, but I am not moving. 617-722-2370. 617-722-2370. We somehow hit the automated system, smash a button, and somehow we'll get a message. Room 42, we are in a return to office mode, and we get to go to meetings and stuff again. So room 42 at State House, please drop by and say hi. If I'm not there, definitely say hi to my staff. You can email me at tackey.chn@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. I am getting co-sponsor request emails. That is the flavor of the day. And State Representative Tackey Chan Facebook and tackeychan.org. is my own website, as well as the malegislature.gov is the official website of the state, malegislature.gov. So plenty of ways to get information about talking to me, plenty of ways to try to get a hold of me. If not myself, you always get a member of my staff. And of course, me and Joe, at some point we'll be together again soon.
We never really were apart, Jackie. But you're welcome anytime. Next time we talk, it'll probably be March.
Yeah. This month is zipped through. I know it's a short month to begin with, but we're zipping through February. March will be around. The governor's budget is being released next Wednesday. Hopefully get a chance to read it before talking to you. So we'll see if the timing of when we chat will give me an opportunity to look at it before you ask me questions. Before you know it, St. Patrick's and April Fools is just around the corner, and we'll be deep into the House budget process, and hopefully I will be able to have committee schedule ready to go. Again, I have a new Senate chair. It takes time to get to know each other and set up a schedule, but I really hate wasting time on public hearings, and I'm kind of a go on this. So, once we can, I hope I can get these hearings started soon. Soon as well. I'm still waiting for bills to committee. Bills are still not been referred to committee. We hope to have them sometime the first week of March. We're hoping. But once I got them, the staff is already prepped to prepare a hearing schedule. So we shall see. And then, just to let you all know, we are not going to be on State Representative Taki Chan Facebook for public hearings. I'll repeat this again in future meetings. The state is requiring us to use malegislature.gov for public hearings through Microsoft Teams. We are migrating off of Zoom, and we will be having hybrid meetings, which I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to do hybrid public hearings in an orderly fashion, keyword orderly. And those of you who've been used to watching me on Facebook, you gotta have to migrate over to the state website, or the legislature.
But they can still catch us here at QATV, no matter what.
Well, I'm sure you guys can rebroadcast some of my better hearings.
You just let us know which ones, and we'll be happy to do it. Thanks a lot, Taki.
You take care, Joe.